Hello, and welcome to Fundamentals of People Management, Module 5. I'm Dr. Lon Schiffbauer, and today we are talking about setting goals and expectations. As we discussed in Module 1, people management is really all about organizing people and resources in such a way as to meet organizational objectives. This means that objectives are at the core of people management. Without a clear goal, effort is wasted, and without effort, a goal is nothing more than a fantasy. This is why people management is so important. It connects people, their effort, to an organizational goal. So this is why it is so important to really understand what is involved in setting goals and expectations for your team. Now, there is a hierarchy to achieving our objectives. We, of course, have our organizational objectives, but to meet our organizational objectives, we need to accomplish our team or departmental objectives. And this means we need to accomplish our individual objectives. This is where you as a people manager really come into your own. We have our organizational objectives, but they tend to be sort of big picture and maybe even a little abstract. It's hard to figure out what you need to do as a team, let alone an individual, to reach these abstract objectives. And that's where you come into play. This is where you can really help. Remember, your job is to ensure that the work your people are doing line up with the strategic objectives. That means their individual objectives need to have a straight line to the organizational objectives. Now, there are a variety of ways that we can do this, a variety of ways that we can set individual objectives for our employees, or with our employees, I should say. More about that later. But the first one I'd like to explore is the idea of input and output goals. Now, simply put, inputs result in outputs. What you do has a result, that is the output or the outcome of your action. So think of inputs as actions and outputs as outcomes. Actually, they should probably call it that in the first place, but kids, it is what it is. Now, when you think of a goal, what you're probably imagining right now in your head is the output, the outcome that you want to achieve, the end state. That's a goal. However, achieving any goal means taking action, the inputs. And so it's important that we understand what the desired outcome is so that we can then kind of reverse engineer that and figure out what kind of actions we need to take, what kind of inputs we need to put into the system. Now, when we look at these output goals, these outcomes that we're shooting for, the end state, we measure them by what is considered lagging indicators. In other words, we are looking at the result of something that has already happened. So, for example, let's say you want to increase customer satisfaction. Great goal. Okay, fantastic. But how are you going to measure success? Well, you go ahead and you do surveys and so forth, and so your success rating right now is 85%. You want to get that up to 95%. Fantastic. That's how you're going to measure success. So how are you going to do this? Well, you're going to take a variety of actions, a variety of inputs. You're going to increase training. You're going to hire some additional employees so you can reduce wait time. You're going to look at your scripts and see if these can be improved. You're going to survey your customers and find out what they want, and then you're going to implement solutions to what they want. Great. Fantastic. Now, you don't know for sure if these are going to work. You're just kind of crossing your fingers and hope that you're on the right track. It's not until the end of the quarter that you measure customer satisfaction and see, bam, 95%. You now know that everything you did before worked. This is why it is called a lagging indicator. Now, all the things that we did, remember, we increased training, we hired some additional people, we surveyed our customers and so forth. These are the inputs. These are the actions that we took to reach our goals. Now, these inputs, we can measure them as well. We measure these through leading indicators. Leading means we believe that these actions will lead to the outcome that we want. And so our leading indicators are things like, well, if you're going to hire more people, how many people are you going to hire? If you're going to do more training, how many hours of training is everybody going to go through and by what time? If you're going to survey customers, how many customers are you going to survey? These are the leading indicators. The idea is that if we execute our inputs properly and reach our leading indicators, then the likelihood of reaching our lagging indicator, the 95%, increases. Okay, so these are the input and output goals. And as a people manager, you absolutely want to live in this space and make sure that one supports the other and the leadings point to the lagging. All right. But now there's another way that we can set individual objectives for our employees, and these are called SMART objectives. SMART is an acronym for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. So with that, let's look at each one of these individually. First, with specific. What specifically do you want your employee focused on? And I mean specific. We're not talking broad strokes here. What specifically is their objective? What does success look like at the end of the day? So let's look at some examples. Perhaps you want your employee to complete new hire training, or perhaps develop a calendar app for both iOS and Android. All right, so that is the specific objective. But now the next is measurable. How are we going to measure success? When somebody says, yeah, I successfully did it, how do you know they did it? How can you quantify success? In the case of new hire training, we could say they completed all the required new hire training. In the case of developing the calendar app for iOS and Android, the measurement could be that it meets all of the requirements set forth by the customer requirement document. Next, we have attainable. This means the objective should be actually doable. It's something the employee can do given their skill set, given their resources, given the available time, things like this. Then we have relevant. Now, this is important because relevant means that the work the employee is doing is directly tied to the organizational objectives. Remember, I said earlier, we want to make sure there's a straight line between the work the employee is doing and what the company is trying to accomplish. Relevant means that this straight line exists. Finally, we have time-bound. This means there is an actual due date attached to this objective. So in the case of the new hire training, a SMART objective might read something like, the employee will complete all of the required training by the end of the month. This is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. In the case of our calendar app, the SMART objective could read something like, the employee will develop a calendar app for both iOS and Android, one that meets all of the requirements set forth in the customer requirement document by the end of the year. These are SMART objectives. Now, one thing I really need to point out here is that it is absolutely mandatory that there is agreement between management, you as the people manager, and the employee. An employee will not sign up. Even if they signed up, their heart will not be in it, their passion will not be in it. Point is, the employee will not sign up for an objective that they have not agreed to. So this needs to be developed through mutual agreement and negotiation. When employees are involved in the goal-setting process and have a say in shaping their objectives, they are more likely to feel a sense of ownership and accountability. And this sense of ownership and accountability is money in the bank when it comes to accomplishing objectives. Furthermore, making sure that you have a mutual agreement ensures that everybody understands exactly what is expected. If an employee is only passively involved in the goal-setting process, then things are going in one ear and out the other. They're not really paying attention. They will passively agree to whatever you say and then probably disregard it. On the other hand, if they are involved in the goal-setting process, then they clearly understand what the expectations are and are ready to start marching toward those goals. Now, of course, just setting the goal, whether it's through input-output goals or SMART objectives or any other process you choose, That's just the beginning. Setting the goal is the starting line. Now you got to actually do the work. And that's what we're going to talk about in our next module when we talk about leading and directing your employees as they go about executing to these objectives. And so I hope you'll stick around with me. We have a lot more to go over. All right? Hey, thanks a lot for joining today. And until we talk again, have a fantastic day.